Ms. Denise Phua.
Deputy Speaker, sir, I wish to speak specifically on the SkillsFuture Singapore Agency Amendment Bill. Now, the amendments tabled in this bill are urgent and deserve the full support of the House. The SkillsFuture Singapore Agency, or SSG, plays an important role to drive and implement the national SkillsFuture movement, promote a culture of lifelong learning through skills mastery by the people of Singapore. There has been an increasingly complicated developments of abuse of SSG fundings, I guess because of the rapidly expanding continuing education and training market and the seduction of the funds. The most infamous abuse is that of a criminal syndicate in 2017 who cheated SSG of $40 million in training grants, and that's through a series of complicated financial arrangements and forged documents. Then there are individuals who submitted false claims without taking any courses. And then there are some employers who are known to falsely submit names of trainees who are not employees, really employees, with and they really have the intent to just assess the SSG grants. And in addition, training providers knowingly also market, some training providers also knowingly market their courses through misrepresentation of information, such as free courses when they are truly not, or untrue learning outcomes and untrue training durations. Persons guilty can be anyone in the value chain of training. Can be training providers, marketing agents, employers, employees, and even training participants themselves. So the issue has to be urgently resolved, lest SSG be wrongly perceived as a toothless agency and abuses and frauds become rampant. But there's a far more important reason, in my view, for quickly resolving this and for our support of this bill. Education Minister Chan Chun Sing has just delivered a few days ago a brilliant public speech on the future of the education landscape of Singapore. He said that the first 15 years of one's education are important, but what happens to one's education in the next 50 years will make or break one's future career and collectively, I believe, Singapore's future. The adult education, the adult CET landscape will see further growth. SSG therefore cannot afford to spend too much of its attention on funding of abuses and frauds so that it can actually direct resources to focus on its core business of designing and delivering lifelong learning nationally. Now, notwithstanding my support, I seek clarifications for specific provisions of the bills, most of which are in Clause 15, which inserts a new Section 57. First, the bill will make it an offence for anyone to enter or facilitate an abusive funding arrangement. An errant party guilty of the offence will be punished in 3 ways: pay a penalty equal to the amount of the wrongly obtained funding, or fined not exceeding $10,000 and or imprisonment for not exceeding 3 years, and or ordered to repay the wrongly obtained funding. My questions are these. 1, do the penalties in fine and or imprisonment commensurate with the size of the offence? For instance, is a fine of $10,000 plus imprisonment sufficient to deter a potential gain of $10 million? Should there or ought there be heavier penalties as suggested during public consultations? What interim measures can be taken by SSG whilst potentially long investigations are ongoing? And in the event that the errant party who's guilty is an entity, to whom will the punishment be meted? The staff, the management, or the director? Next, the bill will also make it an offence to knowingly make it an offence for anyone to knowingly publish or distribute any false or misleading advertisement. Now, does the onus to ensure accuracy fall on the advertising agency or the content provider? Should SSG consider the provision of guidelines, rules, or templates to better guide training providers, their marketing agents, or advertisers in what constitutes acceptable and non-acceptable marketing practices, since prevention is indeed better than cure? Are there means by which potential trainees can protect themselves by referring to a repository of SSG-supported courses and information for validation before one registers for courses. On the next feature of the bill will grant an expanded scope of powers to SSG-appointed inspectors to investigate the added offences and provide for a series of power to do so. Now, in addition to that provided in the bill, do the powers of these inspectors grant them access to information stored, for example, in the cloud, in view of the rise of cloud storage sitting in perhaps external parties? How will SSG tap on the use of technology, example AI, to detect discrepancies routinely? And as white-collar crime investigations require a high degree of specialized expertise, how does SSG plan to access this body of expertise? How will SSG groom homegrown forensic experts to carry out this newly expanded scope of duties? Finally, the bill will also involve the government in, I quote, extra financial expenditure, the exact amount of which cannot at present be ascertained, unquote. Now, I'm keen to know when and how the sum of this extra financial expenditure will be determined. And instead of only budgeting for capacity and capability needed to carry out the additional regulatory powers of this bill, I strongly urge SSG to work on the following two pieces of work for its future plan. One, to strengthen self-monitoring as a feature of the ecosystem, of the landscape. With more than 1,000 training providers and 25,000 SSG-supported courses, I think no number of SSG-appointed inspectors will be enough to ensure better governance. Besides a better whistle-blowing practice, for example, SSG should also appoint credible training partners such as the NTUC or the SSG's larger Queen Bee partners or the institutions of higher learning, larger industry partners to assist it in not just curating or developing training solutions, but also help build systems to strengthen self-monitoring in their respective specific market segments. Another piece of work that I feel is cut out for SSG to do would be to review the SkillsFuture ecosystem for stronger impact. So I started my speech on what Education Minister Chan Chun Sing had recently articulated on the future of education, the future of work. It will be, the future of work, the future of education will be a landscape characterized by mass customization, by tighter industry-academia tie-ups, and by spreading education resources throughout one's lifespan and not only front-loaded in the first 15 years. So with more resources expected to come through the education space throughout one's lifespan, SSG cannot afford to do things the same way. Its initial open and flexible strategy, for example, to encourage as much as trainings as possible, as many training providers as possible, and that's what Professor is trying to encourage, Professor James is trying to encourage, as many training providers as possible. This may be necessary in the first instance, but it has also led to SSG's support of a number of less than competent and worse dishonest training providers due to the sheer size of the market that was created. More importantly, the current strategies may not sufficiently address critical motivation and training gaps of Singaporeans, such as the middle-aged workforce, such as the disabled, such as those who should and can take up better jobs. The adult continuing education and training markets needs to be further studied, needs to be further streamlined. There must be found better ways to design, to organize, to reallocate resources, resourcing of learnings at all ages and levels. More dialogues and actions for SSG and its trusted partners to bring the SkillsFuture movement to the next height. And the 5 CDCs are looking forward and ever ready to support SSG also to help build and develop learning communities at the ground level. So, sir, I fully support the bills, and I thank MOE and the SkillsFuture agency for their tenacity and their hard work in equipping Singaporeans for the future. Kudos.